Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Boot Camp Blueprint, the place where personal trainers go to grow their boot camp. Now, I'm super excited because I have a big name in the industry here. This person actually won the award in the whole of New Zealand. They won the award for the New Zealand Small Group and Boot Camp Instructor of the Year. So this person knows a thing or two about running groups and running group training. But what's even more important here, like anyone that won that title, I would obviously get them on this podcast, but I was actually a judge for this for that award there. So not only did they win the award, I personally judged this award and I gave this person the award. And there were actually 3 judges on the panel, and it was unanimous that in the whole of New Zealand, we all selected this person here. So very exciting podcast. But anyways, without further ado, let me introduce the one and only Mr. Reece McCaffrey from Recreate Personal Training. Reece, how are you?
Very good. Thank you, Jono.
Awesome to hear. Hey, Reece, I like to start all these podcasts off with a quote or mantra that inspires you or fires you up. Have you got one for us?
Yeah, I've got one here for you, mate.
Let's hear it.
Right. Cool. So for me, like, obviously, there's lots of different training modalities out there, and everybody's doing something different. And I think at the moment, like a very current trend in our industry is for people to be doing more. And it's not something that sits that well with me. So the mantra that I'm going to give to you today is that more isn't better, but better is better. So if you've got people out there and they're in your programming and we all have them and they want to train 2-3 times a day, you know, and they want to do as much as they possibly can because they might have wearables or consumables that tell them that getting more points is better. I think that you really need to look at exercise more as a form of self-discovery. So for me, it's about effort. And we like to see people when they're working hard, but also understanding the appropriate times to be in control of exercise and being thoughtful with this effort. So I think for me, it's about learning more about yourself and creating habits that will help you become better. You know, like you don't get any stronger by doing the same thing all the time. You know, you have to have progression. You have to have good programming. And a good coach can always tell you these kind of things. But, you know, if you want to get faster, you don't run at the same speed. You know, you try different modalities. You know, you do interval training, or, you know, there will be times where you need to go fast, but there will also be times where you need to pull back and work on technique. And, you know, I think anyone who's been in the position where they need to tell somebody to slow down will definitely agree with me on that one.
Yeah. Oh, I love that point, Reece. I agree with you 100%. Hey, Reece, what I'd like to run through this podcast, a few different things, but to start with, I'd like to hear your journey. So from what I understand, you've been in the industry about 9 years, and last year you won the New Zealand Small Group Trainer Bootcamp Instructor of the Year. So what I'd love for you to share with my listeners is how that journey worked. So if they're in the industry now and they're just starting off, their goal might be, hey, you know, in 9 years, I want to win that award, or I want to win that award in my respective country, or, you know, hey, I'm, 9 years in now and I haven't won that award. What could I have done differently, or what can I tweak so that I do win that award there? Can you share that story with us, Reece?
Yeah, for sure. So I guess for me, it started when I was relatively young. So I was always sports mad. So I did absolutely everything that I could get my hands on. So I was playing rugby, I was playing touch rugby, cricket, basketball, swimming, athletics, you know, everything that I did was always for a purpose. You know, like I'd say I'm relatively competitive, and you can probably get that from meeting me before. But long story short, when I left school, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And my father was a builder, and he said to me, I'd never want you to be a builder, which is funny now because I have a lot of friends who are successful builders. But anyway, we'll move away from that. So I decided to follow my dream and going into the sports and health and fitness industry. So as an 18-year-old, I went to so a bit of background on myself. I grew up in the North Island in New Zealand in a very small town called Wanganui. I moved away from there when I was about 16, 17 years old to the South Island, which is quite a different change in demographic of people, just in terms of, for me, I don't know. I didn't really feel like I fit in the South Island when I first moved down there. But I did 2 more years of school there and made some really, really good friends. And I think sport was a real anchor for me. And a lot of people who run boot camps and team training will understand this. People who have been in sports teams and stuff before can create a culture. People who haven't, so people who have been, and even individual sporting types as well, will stick to themselves and become a little bit introverted. And I think moving for me, it brought a little bit of that introvert out of me, but being in a sporting situation, it sort of let me make friends and sort of develop from there. So me and a few of the guys I went to school with ended up studying together at the Diploma in Sport, which was my first port of call, which was a 1-year course, and it was really, really great. And I learned a lot when I was there, but then the qualification had me staring at a swimming pool and cleaning cardio equipment. So the end result that I got from that was my first job in the industry. And those of us who start out in the industry will understand this. I was a manceptionist, so I was running the front desk.
I've been there.
Trying to do sales. You've been there.
I've been there.
I think we've all been there for a wee bit, and I think it's really important to do your time in that role, because a lot of people now, like I'm hiring and employing staff now, and they don't respect the need to have to do that. I learned some really, really amazing things there around sales. And I had a really, really good manager at the time. But I stared at the pool one day. I was a lifeguard / fitness instructor, and I was staring at the pool one day, and I went, "Is this really what I want to do for the rest of my life?" So at the time, I was relatively good at the physiology and anatomy stuff, and so I decided that I'd apply for a sports science degree down in Otago, which is sort of one of the main centres in New Zealand. But also at the same time, I had an opportunity. I was quite a good rugby player, so rugby union in New Zealand, obviously, not league, but the national game. So I went for a rugby scholarship at Lincoln University, which was actually more of a sport management degree. That was what they had on offer. So I got accepted to both, but the scholarship was obviously a draw card for me. So with the scholarship, very interesting actually to go on the scholarship, because out of New Zealand they have a grading system for rugby union based on your secondary school ability of playing, and in my position at the time I was a flanker, which is Richie McCaw's position. So everybody wanted to be Richie McCaw when I was 18.
Never heard of him. Who's never heard of him? Who's that? No, I'm joking. I'm joking.
George Smith's older brother. No. So what happened was there was 7 flankers on my scholarship. So I quickly realized, hey, I'm not going to be the best here, but this could be a really good way for me to get my education. So yeah, I live in Christchurch, Canterbury now. That's where the scholarship was. And for those of you who know, Crusaders rugby, there's a whole back story in Christchurch around. If you come from out of town and you arrive to a club and you play for a club, everybody asks you what school you went to, and there's a very strong, Christchurch Boys is a very strong school here. It's produced, I don't know, I would say 50% of, the All Blacks over the last 10 years. It's an amazing
really?
school. That's a random stat. I can't back that up. But Dan Carter, a lot of the class guys have come out of there. So it's very, very hard to crack it here. So I continued to play, which was great. I got my education, my tertiary education. I ended up with a sport management degree with a major in exercise and health. So I sort of focused on the exercise and health side of things. And then all the way through, I was still sort of working in these part-time roles in gyms. So I always had my finger in it. It was always my passion to work with people. But we're talking like minimum wage jobs. And we're talking, I'm getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning or 5:30 in the morning to ride my bike in the winter, to open up a gym at 6 a.m., sit on the front desk for 2 hours, maybe write a program for someone. I think every now and then we were allowed to have that opportunity to design programs and deliver them, but it wasn't often, because there was contract PTs and stuff that were there, and that was more their role. We were more sort of meet and greet, make sure everybody was doing things properly sort of thing. But then at 8 o'clock, I'd have to leave to go to university, you know, to study. And then at night time, I sometimes would either go to a sports training or I would go back and walk the floor and talk to people. So again, my passion was always to become a personal trainer. And that's what I really, really wanted to do. So when I finished and when I finally graduated, I just approached my current gym owner that I was at, and I said to him, hey, what's the deal here with PTs? Like, I want to become a PT. And he said to me, no, sorry, we don't have a role. And I was like, well, what do I have to do to get one? And he said to me, well, to tell you the truth, Reece, our sales are down a little bit at the moment. And I sort of had a little bit of experience in sales, and I just said to him, well, sweet, well, what do you want me to do? He said, I'm going to pay you 10% commission. And at this time, no one was really doing direct debit. So everything was like 12-month memberships. And the gym that I was in at this time, it was a corporate health club in the city. So it was about $1,000 a year.
Yep.
So if I was to sell one membership, I was going to get 10%. So that was $100.
Yeah.
So that for me was like, you know, that's not a bad deal.
Yeah.
I had a retainer. I think it was like, I don't want to quote on this, but I'm going to say $150 a week.
Okay. Oh, wow.
It was it was nothing. I think it was based on like 10 hours at $15 an hour or something. It was pretty low. But then any of those commissions that I took, I could take. So I put my thinking hat on and I was like, right, how am I going to get myself some sales? So the building that we were in was a corporate building. So we were on level 3. There was 14 floors. There was all lawyers, accountants. There was a few recruitment companies. You know, it was actually like, if I look at it now, it was a gold mine. Like, we have nothing like this in Christchurch anymore. But I just went knocking on the door. So I went down to Barker's, which is like a suit shop, and I got myself some suit pants. I got myself a shirt and tie, and I went in there. And I look back on it now because I wore that shirt and tie to a lot of weddings as well. And I was like, I must have looked like a dick. Like, you know, just rocked up in there, this young, enthusiastic, you know, I probably was early 20s by then, maybe 21, 22. And I walk in there and I knock on the door and I generated this prospectus. And so it was like, if you want to come and come to the health club, you know, if you sign up now, you'll get X amount of personal training sessions. You'll get this consultation, and you know, I put this beautiful package to you. I thought it was amazing, and I had it shoved back in my face about 5 times. So, you know, as a young guy, this kind of knocks your confidence. And then I thought, well, okay, so this walk-in approach isn't working for me. So what I did is I got on the database and I started pulling. Well, actually, all I did is I looked through emails of current members that were attending that I didn't know. And I looked at their email address. And if their email address had an @ whatever their business was, I was emailing them. And all I did was I emailed them just on hey, you know, I've just started working at the Clarendon Health Club was the name at the time. Is there an opportunity that I could meet with you? There's some stuff I'd like to talk to you about maybe looking at doing a corporate deal with your staff at the gym. And I sent out probably, I want to say we had a membership of about 400. I probably sent out about 50 of these emails. And I got one back. And it was a guy, and I remember his name. His name was Mike. And Mike said he was going to meet with me for a coffee. And I went down to see Mike, and I was thinking, okay, this is my big sales opportunity. The email had some pricing and some stuff on there. I sat down with Mike. He was a man of very few words. And he said, yep, Reece is it? And I said, yeah, it is. And he said, I'd like to sign up 10 of my management staff to your gym.
Wow.
So I was like, yeah. And at the time I was like, like just absolutely gobsmacked. And I didn't really know what to do. And so I just continued yarning to the guy, and he actually ended up being, you know, being a PT client. And I had him for quite some time, but it was a real breakthrough moment for me. Like, I'd sort of had this job where I wasn't making any money, and I was sort of going backwards and forwards. I had no car at the time, and my girlfriend at the time lived on the other side of town, so I was biking to her house after work, which is like an hour bike ride, and she thought that I was so committed, but really I was just trying to make a buck, you know, like I was sort of on the, I'd come from this student life of living off $150 a week, and I sort of had that mastered, you know, down packed, and I had this breakthrough on sales, and I made $1,000, you know, in one meeting. And I was like, okay, there's something in this. So I take it back to the gym owner, and I sit down with him, And he's like, what? You've got 10 sales in one go? And I said, yeah, I've just been sending out this prospectus and da-da-da-da, and, this is what's come of it. And so he's rubbing his hands together, right? Because he's just made just shy. Well, he's made $9,000, isn't he? So that's
not a bad day's work.
Both of us. And he said, well, that's when he said to me, do you want that PT role now? So it was like a real, like a bittersweet ending to me. I continued doing the sales role, but also PTing on the side. So what happened with these 10 new leads is I consulted them all. And then once I consulted them all, I converted, I think, 5 of them into PT clients. So that was the start of my business. Yeah. So it was a really, really good way to start. And then from there, obviously, like many other PTs, I guess, I probably sat on those 5 clients for 2 or 3 months because I was too scared to ask other people in the gym for sales. And I had a mentor at the time, and he said to me, you know who you are? And this always has sat with me really, really well. He said, you're that guy who has a girlfriend, a girl that he likes, and you're talking to that girl every single day, and you've just become the best friend. And you know what? She's sitting on the end of the bed crying to you about another guy that she's in love with, and you will never, ever get the opportunity because you're too nice. You don't ask for a sale. And I guess in this case, it was like you don't ask the girl for, a relationship or whatever. But yeah, that analogy really sort of sat in my mind. Like, I would walk the floor and be like, how's your day going? How's your programming going? And you know what? You're a shark when you're a PT. So people just turn around to you and they just say, I'm good, thanks. Or, oh, my programming's fine. And I couldn't really get my head around it because I'd gone from being this guy who was like the guy who cleaned the equipment that everyone wanted to talk to being this guy that they're like, oh, you're a used car salesman and I don't want your service. So therefore we can't even be friends anymore. And it was harsh, man. It was a harsh reality of going from being an employed staff member to being a contractor. And I remember another story that kind of resonates with me a little bit is a guy came downstairs from the changing room and I said, oh, we had towels, so you could take the towels if you wanted the towel. And I was the guy who chucked the towel in the bucket pretty much. And then I took it and washed it, folded it, put it back. That was sort of my role. And I said, oh, thanks for that, mate. And he turned around and he looked at me and he said, I'm not your mate. And I was like, whoa.
Wow.
And it was like, yeah, I was like, wow, I don't know the guy. Fair call, but it was just like that whole, these guys were professionals and I was a young, enthusiastic male who was trying to build a business. And I thought, I thought you could call people mate. Like it's changed now, right? We're 10 years on and things have sort of changed a little bit and the demographics have changed. I work in a really friendly gym now and everybody's happy to say hello to each other, but that was a bit of an eye opener for me. So I guess if we want to fast forward a little bit, because I kind of want to move on from this just to get, I can talk. I mean,
I'm loving it. I'm loving this so far. Please keep going.
Yeah. So, there was like those I live in Christchurch. So we had the Christchurch earthquake, 2011, I want to say. Could have been 2011, 2012. There was a bit going on. We had the September earthquake first, which actually severely damaged the building that I was working in, which shut me down. I'd probably been PTing at this point for close to 12 months. And I had a respectable client base. I think I was working with about maybe say 20 clients, ranging sort of from 1 to 3 sessions a week. So I was making decent money. I was pretty happy. And then the earthquake hit and a lot of the buildings in town got red zoned. So there was no ability for us to go into town. My equipment was in there, everything that I had, so it was like, and this is before, I don't know, there wasn't many bodyweight resources out there. I remember, I don't know, this might be a wee little flashback for you, but I don't know if you remember Craig Ballantyne and the turbulence training.
Yes.
I don't know if you remember that. He was a bit of a YouTube sensation. He's also an entrepreneur now, and he does more sort of business and mindset coaching. But I used to follow his stuff, and I was like, sweet, well, I've got this in my toolbox. I'm going to train people in the park. So in between the September and the February earthquakes, where things weren't too bad in Christchurch, there was a few things sort of slowed right down. And like I could have just sat on my hands, and I had business interruption insurance, but it wasn't really paying me much. I think they were paying me maybe say like $500 a week. By the time my house rent, gym rent, food went out of that, I was pretty skinned. So I went to the park and I started, this was kind of the birth of my boot camp, So it was like, I started training people in the park. I was too scared to put two people together, so I would just train them like one-on-one clients back to back. So I would do like a half hour, then an hour, then a half hour, then an hour, and people actually started to love it, because what happened was, in the earthquake time, so people were so displaced from their houses, and they had the inability to, some of them couldn't go to work. Some of them were really stressed because they'd lost their family homes. So going out in the park and talking to a random guy about their life that didn't really know anything about anyone that knew them, was a really great opportunity for them to blow off some steam. And for me, it was a really good way for me to keep my business alive. And so that sort of continued on for a while, and then they actually let us back into the building. So then things started to kick off a wee bit again. And then obviously February, we had the major earthquake. So that was freaky stuff, man. Like that was, so I'll give you a bit of background of where we were. So I was in the center of the city, 1 o'clock. So it's like lunchtime. I had a client on the treadmill. He was a partner from a law firm. He was probably in his 70s, I would say at the time. So like, he should have retired, but he was just sort of doing his thing and staying in the business and keeping things going. Anyway, we didn't do much more in our sessions than sort of walk on the treadmill and a couple of chest presses, and like it was more of a keeping the guy going kind of thing. And I just felt this like almighty shunt through the building, and I just thought, we've got to get out of here. And then because we had a big concrete facade on one corner. The building is a real iconic building. I don't know, people want to like get on Google and stuff. It was called the Clarendon Tower, but when the Beatles came to Christchurch, they played and they stood up on the outside of the building. So that was like an iconic moment for this building. But anyway, long story short, that facade was on one corner, and it was for the first 3 stories. So it was heavy and it twisted. So the whole thing twisted. I grabbed this guy under my arm. He was probably only about 75 kilos, wringing wet. And we ran and we stood in the doorway. It was lunchtime, so it was busy. There might have been like, let's say 15 or 20 people in the gym. And this thing just starts shaking, and it just doesn't stop. And like dust and panels are flying everywhere, and like people are ducking for cover. And like, when it's a big one, like when you've been in the experience before, because we kind of had one, and then we kind of had a few aftershocks, and it wasn't too bad, but this was like some serious shit. Like, like people are crying. I opened the door to go out into the car park to try and get out of the building, and cars' radiators had hit the side of the building, and there was like water going everywhere. All the sprinklers had gone off in the building. Like, we're talking like, this is movie stuff, right?
Yeah.
So we get out of the building, we get to like where we're supposed to be for our assembly point, and everyone's like shaking, like the whole of Christchurch City's out on the road. And we look up into our building, and we realize the guys that were in there doing repairs from the previous earthquake are holding up their high vis. So they're stuck in the top of the building. So what we didn't realize at the time was that it's a 14-story building, and the middle of the stairwell had collapsed. So everyone from level, I think 8 or 9 up was still stuck in the building.
Wow.
And at this time we're having some serious aftershocks. So that was some pretty freaky stuff. And just to make the story even better, my my now wife and current girlfriend at the time was on the 14th floor.
No.
So she was trapped in there. Yeah. So, I mean, I know I want to get back to the PT, but it's such a good story.
It is. I'm captivated here. Yeah. Please keep going.
I'll close it out. But I went for a wee wander just around the city just to see the magnitude of what had happened. And I actually walked down, we were 1 block from the Cathedral Square. So I walked down to the Cathedral Square, and I saw that the Christchurch Cathedral had fallen. And that was a bit of an eye-opener for me. And police were turning people away from the city, so they were telling us to get out. So I sort of didn't know what to do. So I went down Cashel Mall, and for those of you who are familiar with, New Zealand trainers and Christchurch trainers, Cashel Mall was a place where there was probably, I think, 5 or 6 fatalities. So yeah, going down there was pretty heavy. I saw some things that I probably never want to see again. But yeah, we got escorted out of there pretty quickly. There was gas leaks. It was pandemonium. It was panic. So long story short, I went home. I walked home because my car was stuck in town. I was in a parking building. They wouldn't let us go in there. I walked home and sat at home. All the phone lines were jammed because everyone was trying to ring everyone, and everyone was trying to get out of the city, and it was just chaos. But yeah, eventually, and I mean, like, I could tell the story for probably another 20 minutes if I needed to, but my wife arrived. I actually ended up picking her up, walking down to meet her, and, you know, she just burst into tears, and it was just like, what the fuck has just happened, you know? So that essentially that killed my business. Like, that was it. It was like, no, we're never going back there. We're never, you know, doing that kind of thing. And the strangest thing happened, right? So let's fast forward like maybe 2 weeks later, once we actually took refuge. My mum lives in the Gold Coast, and we flew out. There was like compassionate flights, and we flew out for 2 weeks and went back to the Gold Coast. And I was heart set on actually setting up a PT business in Brisbane. I was like, this is me. I'm going to set up in Brisbane. You know, my clients are done. And actually, my mum turned around and said to me, she said, but what about all the ones that you currently have? She's like, what are you going to do with them? You're just going to leave them? And I was like, well, you know, I just think there's opportunities here. And she goes, no, you've got to go back. You've got to go back, and you've got to fix your life. You've got to go back to your house. You've got a cat. You know, like, you've got things going on there that you need to sort out. So we went back, and the funniest thing happened, man. People started calling me up, and they were like, where are you? What are you doing? We need you. Like, this is the time. We're not working. Why aren't we doing stuff? You know, and that really resonates with me, because now a lot of what I coach is mental health and mindset. And like, I didn't realize at the time, but that's essentially what my service was. It was a mental health service. It was helping other people. It was pulling people out of a bad spot, and like, it was hard to even ask. So you meet with a client that you had previously that wanted to meet up in this time, and you were scared to ask what had happened, because they could have lost a family member, or they could have lost their home, or, you know, so that was bad. You know, that was a bad time. But what happened was, the positive out of this is I've moved into the gym that I'm at now that opened in May. So we're fast forwarding probably 3 or 4 months on. It opened in May. It had setbacks because it wanted to open earlier, but there was a bit of stuff. But it was on the outskirts of town, so it wasn't in the red zone. It wasn't anywhere near anything. And I thought, you know what, this is a bit of a, you know, it's a random spot. It's a bit of a nowhere spot. It was residentially, like, the houses around it are very low socioeconomic. So I was like a little bit scared. Like, there's people that wander up and down there, you know, that are a bit, you know, strange. But what happened was, nobody had a gym. So what happened? Mate, the inquiries, the numbers, the people just started coming in. It was like unreal. Like, we went from, I probably took, I'm going to say, like, a tenth of my client base into this new spot and started training them. And then I reckon I was consulting 2 or 3 people a day.
Wow.
And like, all they wanted was like the same thing. They wanted to get away from their pain point, which was, I've lost my house. I've lost my job. I've lost whatever. And there was just this whole real bad vibe going on in Christchurch at the time. And you know what they say, make hay when the sun shines. Like, I wasn't living off people's pain, but I was providing a solution for people to get their feel-good feelings back by exercising and you know, being part of something again, getting that whole team camaraderie and culture. And we started running boot camps, and you know, that they were slow. Like, I remember doing boot camps with like 4 or 5 people and being like, when is this going to pick up? And I think for all the people out there listening, they're like, oh, I pour all this money into social media and I do this and I do that. The best thing you can do, and this was something that I did at the time and I didn't even know how good it was, I actually just asked people for referrals. And it's like the simplest thing you can do. And like, don't even text them, because texting's dumb. Like, talk to them in person, because relationships are very, very important. So if you can develop a relationship with somebody where you give them results and you make them feel good, they are going to trust you. So it's that whole know, like, and trust factor thing. If you don't have that, don't even go anywhere near asking them for anything, because they're just going to laugh at you and they're going to be like, okay, this lady that I've trained with for one day wants me to send all my friends here, so why would I do that? And I see that happen at the point of sale all the time, and it really frustrates me.
Yeah.
But that's not what I'm talking about now. I just said to them, hey, John, you've been training with me now for like the last 6 months, and it's been awesome. And like, I respect you. I've seen you transform from here to here, and it's been amazing. And I'm really proud of you for that. But what I want is, because my business is, you know, we're all struggling at the moment. What I'd really like for you to do is, if you've got any friends or anyone who's like you, who would like to get this kind of benefit from this kind of service, then I'd like to meet with them and just chat with them. Because for me, you know, I think if I can get in front of somebody and talk to them and really figure out why they're there or what their pain points are, then it's really, really easy for me. I don't even call it sales anymore. Like I call it providing a solution to somebody's pain. Like everybody's got pain, and it's just a matter of being able to meet with them, you know, build that rapport obviously, and then find out what it is and then provide a solution. And then you can cater it and tailor it to any way, you know, like it doesn't have to cost them the moon. But then some people want to pay, we've got clients that pay $300, $400 a week. Like it's stupid, but like you're never going to find them all the time. But people nowadays respect their health and fitness. They're happy to, you know, do it. They want to do something for themselves, and they're happy to pay a professional to give them that service. So what I'm saying, I guess, is if you don't ask for referrals, you're not going to get them. And if people don't know that you want referrals, then they just think that you're happy and your business is running, you know, the way that you want it to. So we did that. And I wouldn't say our numbers doubled, but I'd say we probably got up to 7 or 8, you know, and then from 7 or 8 people, we continued doing those boot camps. And we only ran one a week. We just did a Saturday morning. So I had my PT, was my bread and butter. And then I did my one boot camp on the weekend. And I got so busy that I couldn't do it by myself anymore, which was great. You know, so as a personal trainer, you get to this point where you're like, you know what, I can't work 6 in the morning till 6 at night back to back seeing people because I just end up being a zombie. And the funny thing is, while I'm telling you this now, I still do this now, but it's different. But I've scaled things and things are, you know, things are good. But I bought on a subcontractor. And this for me was like a really interesting turning point, because then I was able to say to people, hey, because everyone wants a piece of you. And you'll learn this when you subcontract yourself or you find people on wages or whatever, they want a piece of you. So everyone was like, well, I want to see you. And I'm like, yeah, well, hey, you can come and see me, but I think you're going to get a better service from this person because I'm tired. Like if you're my 15th, 16th appointment of the day, you are getting a poor service, you know, like that's not, nobody wants that, you know? So I guess what I ended up doing was referring a lot of my clients on to my subcontractor, who stayed with me for probably 2 or 3 years, which was really, really awesome. She moved on. She now has her own successful business now, which is really, really cool. But again, I could talk about all the nitty gritty stuff that happened in between. I mean, I've grafted for years and years and years, and things haven't happened overnight. Like, I've battled, you know, I've had times where I'm like, I don't know if I can pay my, like GST, that thing blows my mind all the time, but like, it just comes about at different times where I've been like, man, I don't even know if I can eat this week. But now I run a team of, you know, 4 full-time trainers. I have 3 group trainers on the side. We're probably one of the most, and I'm not going to blow my own trumpet, but we're probably one of the most successful independently run personal training services in Christchurch. We have a name for ourselves in terms of the way that we train people, and I talk a little bit around this in terms of we will train anyone. So like, you know how you talk about niche marketing, we don't specifically target a person, we target a mindset. So what we look at is we look at somebody who's willing to work hard. If you're willing to put in the effort, then we're willing to give you the time. So if I meet with somebody in a consultation and I think that they're not going to do it, we'll actually turn them away, because there's no point in me working with somebody that's not going to fit my style. You're not going to fit a square peg in a round hole. And I think actually, Jono, this happened at the industry awards when I was getting judged, and I thought I'd screwed up. But one of the female judges asked me if I had a 65-year-old woman who was menopause with a bad knee come to one of my classes, what would I do? And I said, well, I wouldn't.
Yeah.
You know? And she was like, well, what do you mean? I said, well, I market in such a way that I try to find a person that would fit the mold for the specific programming. And the programming that we deliver, it could work for somebody like that, but I would have to sit down with them and have a good chat with them. And then I would one-on-one train them so they got to a point where they were ready to do this kind of programming. But to be honest with you, I would refer them on to somebody else, maybe a wellness coach or somebody who's more qualified with rehabilitation, or, you know, because you're not going to stick a 65-year-old woman on an air bike for 1 minute and hope that she's going to bang out 40 calories. You know, it's just not going to happen. No, and she's not going to come back, and she's not going to like me. But if I do that with, you know, a 35-year-old businessman who, you know, always on the run and, you know, forgot to eat lunch and wanted to show up to the gym but didn't know what to do, he's going to jump off that bike and feel like shit for 5 minutes afterwards. And then he's going to go home and he's going to be like, that was awesome. I want to go and do that again, and I want to go hang out with that guy again, and I want to learn how to get better at that. But that's sort of what we do. We niche down to more of a mindset rather than a specific type of person. So we've got stay-at-home mums, we've got business people. Shannon, one of my head trainers, he's got an ex-Paralympian swimmer, you know, who's in a wheelchair.
Wow.
But the thing that they all have in common is they're ready and they're willing to work, and they're ready and willing to put in the effort. And, you know, that kind of speaks volumes of, I call it natural selection. So if you'll gravitate to people who are the same. You know, if they're willing to work hard and you're willing to work hard, and they want to see you doing the things that you say you do. And there's always this controversial argument about like the trainer that walks the walk or does the talk. I know a lot of knowledgeable trainers that are not in the best shape. And I sort of come from a bit of a powerlifting background as well. So I don't believe that to a T, but you have to be willing to be able to program for them and put in the same effort that they're willing to put in. And I think that's really important as well.
Yeah.
So let's quickly move on to the industry awards, because that sort of talks a little bit about where I am now. We're running now 4 boot camps a week, where we're sort of sitting around sort of anywhere of 20 to 30 people at each session. They're all there. They're working hard for each other. They're there for, you know, we come for different reasons, but we stay for that common purpose of we enjoy that social side of it. We enjoy that physical exertion, but also, you know, that mental escape that we get from pushing ourselves to the limit. And I talk a lot about in my sessions about the important things I think are movement, strength, and then mindset. And like the biggest thing is like in my rugby career, I got really badly injured, you know, and I have a lot of injuries. I've had a lot of surgeries. I finished up a banged up player, and my movement was poor. It was really shit. And I spent a lot of time trying to fix it. And what I realized at that point is that if you can't move well, you can't do anything. And when I sit down and I meet with people now, like if you've been sitting in a desk for 40 years, your shoulders are horrible. You know, like your upper thoracic is twisted. Like you don't have good posture, and you can't move the way that you want to. Like your chest probably won't even contract if you do a press up. You know, so there's so many things that we do now around making people feel better in terms of movement. And that's probably more in our small group and one-on-one sessions. But like if you can move well, then you'll be strong. And if you're strong, then you can push through pain, you know, and if you're willing to push through pain, then you'll get to where you want to be. But if you can't put it all together in one package, and there's always going to be elements where you're lacking and elements where you're strong, but it's finding, you know, somebody's sort of weak point and helping them push through that to get them to where they want to be. And we've moved a lot away from like these 4-week transformation programs, and we did heaps of it, man. We did before and afters, and it was awesome for marketing, and we're getting people in who had unrealistic expectations of losing 5 kilos in 4 weeks. And you know what? If somebody comes to me now and their performance increases over a 4-week period, and they feel better and they move better and they've lost a kilo, man, that's a win, man. That's a high five. You put that into 12 months of training, you put that into a periodization model, and you know, you see what comes out the other side of that. You've got a completely different human over 12 months. And that's sort of what we're trying to produce now. So a lot of what I teach to my trainers, so I guess I've sort of moved more into a mentor role now, where I'm mentoring trainers. And don't get me wrong, I still do stupid hours. I still probably spend 40 or 50 hours in a gym. But that's by choice, you know, because I'm a control freak, and I like to I like to have my hand on everything, but I also like to help everyone that I started with, which is a bit of a bugbear of my own, because I think the project's never finished. But I guess for me, looking at the awards, I've never actually put myself out there for an award before. So this year, or the last year, was a really exploratory mission for me, looking into myself and my own business, because there was a lot of submissions. So to get there, mate, I spent so many nights in front of my computer writing about target markets and writing about what do I think the best PT is, or what are the expectations of a client when they come and see me. And there was video submissions, and every time I got through to the next round, I thought it was done, and then I just got a whole nother list of things I had to do. So I was staying up late, man. I was staying up till 10 o'clock, midnight. My wife's yelling at me to come to bed because I get up at 4:30 in the morning. But it was important to me. It was important to me to get it done because I hadn't really audited my business like that in a while. And I know it's really important to know your numbers, but it gets a little bit crazy sometimes, and it gets a little bit busy, and like leads and stuff don't get followed up properly. And like, I understand that, and we've got better systems in place this year. And I think every year we're going to get better and better and better at it. But long story short, I got down to the top 5, and that actually blew my mind. So when I got to the top 5, I was like, okay, I'm in the top 5 best small group trainers in New Zealand. And then so naturally what you do is you stalk them, right? So you see the other people's names, and I'm straight on Facebook, I'm straight on Instagram, and I'm looking at these people and I'm going, oh man, these guys are really awesome, I was like, but hey, I've done what I can do now. I've got to go up there. I've got to put my best foot forward. Another big milestone in my life this year, we had our baby boy George. So he's currently 7 months old now. So he was, at the time of the awards, he was 6 months old. So it was a mission for me to get to Auckland for the awards. So I ended up flying my mother-in-law and my wife up, and baby George came with us. So we all got on the plane Friday morning for the live judging on Friday. And I went into this live judging, and it wasn't super intimidating to start with. So we sort of sat down and we got briefed on everything we needed to do. We met some of the other contestants, and there was a PT of the year was there. There was small group trainer of the year. There was student of the year, and I think up and coming PT. And so there's like 60 amazing trainers in this one room, and there's I think a panel of maybe say 20 judges who I'm picking out faces that I've seen on social media and people that I know, and I'm going, oh God, I'm going to have to present in front of these people. So, the anxiety kicks in. And essentially what we had to do was deliver a small group session in front of other PTs. So they were our clientele. So we got 4 or 5 people from each group, different categories. You didn't really get time to introduce yourself or get to know them. But as you know, like a lot of you guys listening who are PTs as well, who are the hardest people to train? People who already know everything. So, you say, before you even say what the movement is and you start explaining the movement, they're already doing it. And if they've already got an injury, they've already changed to doing something else. And we had 10 minutes to present. So I actually noticed that there wasn't a lot of people, because a lot of the other people were getting, their presentations were more hands-on and a little bit of written stuff. And so they weren't actually attending the group sessions. So I sort of felt a little bit bad for people, and I was quite nervous. So I actually just started doing everyone else's group sessions. I was like, I can't just sit here and wait around. I had ADD as a child, and I can't really sit still, and I probably still do have it. It's just undiagnosed. But if anyone knows me and knows me in the gym, like I don't sit still for very long. Like I'm up and about pretty quick. So I actually ended up doing 3 of the small group sessions before I did my own. And which kind of actually put me a little bit at ease, because I kind of knew what the other guys were doing as well. So I made a real effort. I had just sort of seen that they were sort of taking their sessions like it was a large group session. It was like they were presenting in front of like 40 people, and they were kind of like yelling, and they were like, go here, do this, do that. And I was like, I had 3 people show up to my session. So I'm like, what am I going to do? I'm going to connect these people, I'm going to get them together. I'm going to get them to meet each other, and I'm going to get them high-fiving, and I'm getting shaking hands, and I'm going to get them counting reps for each other. And, I felt like by the end of it, it was 10 minutes, but I kind of felt like I knew them. Like I kind of felt like I could work with them, or, like we kind of left and we all like it was almost like we had a group hug at the end, because it was fun. And then there was a bit of sitting around for a while, and we went to the second section, which was the business section. So in the business section, we were asked some pretty tough questions about our business. Kind of like, have you ever seen Shark Tank? Like, kind of felt like I was in the Shark Tank, like I was presenting an idea. So there was Jono, and there was 2 other guys on one side, and there was 3 females on the other. and it was Jesse and Dan, I think, were my other two judges, and they'd been there for my practical assessment. I kind of felt like I'd gotten an opportunity to kind of try and connect with them, but the other three were pretty cold. So I was coming in pretty cold with them. I kind of cracked a few funnies out the gate and didn't really laugh at me. They just kind of looked at me like I was just some hyperactive school kid. So kind of just settled down and sat on my hands for a little bit. But I found that a really, really good experience because the questions that you guys were asking me were things that I actually did know. So there was a few questions there about like, hey, what's your demographic that are coming to your business? And I had worked that out recently that we're actually 70% female, which is interesting for a strength and conditioning sort of themed training program. But I think because guys think they know it all. I think that's sort of what I said. Guys think they can do everything by themselves. So females are a little bit more of that sort of steady, cautious sort of profile type where they like to be made sure that they're doing things properly. So they'll hire a coach so that they get things down packed. But
it's like the old directions, like the old directions joke, right? The guy won't even freaking ask someone directions on how to get to the other side of the street, So to try and get him to...
I will get extremely lost before I will, and I'm bad at directions too. I get lost all the time, and I will not ask for help. I will not my Google Maps. Yeah, I understand that for sure. Anyway, I got to the end of the business presentation, and I thought that I'd sort of mucked a few things up. And I kind of left it thinking, you know what? I've met these other people. There's 4 other people in my category. They're all really, really awesome. I'm just happy to be here. I'm going to kick back and relax tomorrow. And then when the awards come, I just can't wait to see who's won, because I was like, oh, it's either going to be actually Karen that you had on. She did a podcast with you a few weeks back. Yep. I thought Karen was amazing. Actually, to be fair, I actually thought they were all pretty amazing. So I was in the awards dinner and it kind of came around to my category. And I was actually sitting at a table. It was like the hot table. There'd been 2 awards already gone off at my table. And I was like, oh, this is my category. Oh, well. We'll see who got it. And when my name got read out, it was like this whole like euphoric kind of like, did they get that right? Have they chosen the right person here? So I just, I beeline for the steps, and I have this funny thing, like I'm always worried that I'm going to fall over going up steps or going down steps. So I like just kind of like focused in on the steps, got to the top, got my photo taken, and went back and sat down, and that was just a real surreal feeling to know that you are the best in your country at what you do, So for me, it was like, I've been through a bit of hard times. I've been through some good things, and like, it was bittersweet, and it was really nice to know that the community that you influence was getting, you're doing things that are industry leading, and you're providing a really good service to them. And, like the amount of like messages that I got and congratulations and stuff was just like, it was unreal. Like I was on cloud 9 for like 2 or 3 weeks, and yeah, it's still there. People that you haven't seen for a while, they come up and they're like, oh, I see you won that award, and it's really, really cool. And I just don't even. I just the main thing I would say to others is like, put yourself out there. Like never be afraid to, because it's hard to talk about yourself, and it's hard to say what you did was good. Like we have this whole like tall poppy syndrome thing where it's like, I need to be introverted, and when I'm in an elevator, I need to look at the wall because it's not, it's not okay to talk to other people that you don't know and stuff like that. But just be yourself, and like I stayed true to my I guess my values, and I didn't try to be somebody that I was not, and I think that actually spoke volumes for the judges and how it all turned out.
Yeah, I agree 100%. What a story, Reece. I don't know if you've been seeing, but I've been taking notes and notes and notes and notes and notes. Do you mind if I give a bit of a oh, sorry, go.
Yeah. Good luck on your recap on that one, Jono.
No, well, I've taken some, I could just summarize that. The best thing for a listener to do is just listen to this over and over and over again, because there's so many bits of gold there. But I want to just pick out some strategic points. We are running a bit short on time, but I just want to run through some quick strategic points. Then we'll finish up with some closing questions. But for anyone listening, here are the biggest points I found out of Reece's story there. The first part is probably the work ethic, and in the nicest possible way, starting from the bottom. right? Same as me. That's Reece. The way Reece started is exactly the same that I started. I was behind the front desk. I was cleaning treadmills. I was doing the bathroom checks. I was stacking the soda machine. All those really bad jobs that you don't really get into the industry to do, but you learn so much from it. And there's something about starting from the bottom down there that gives you a 360 view of what's going on. And a lot of trainers these days want to start at the top. Hey, I've just done my qualifications. Now I want to, straight away open my own studio or straight away start this boot camp with 100 people. And hey, it can be done, but it's a lot easier if you start slower, see what goes on down the bottom, because it helps as you move forward there. So I love that. I love and the other thing, so work ethic is number one with Reece. The second thing is resourcefulness, right? So if you listen to Reece's story at the start where he's like, hey, I want to be a PT. And the gym owner's like, nope, we don't do it. Reece wasn't like, oh, okay, I'll go and look somewhere else. Or, okay, it can't be done, so I'll just stay where I'm at. Reece was like, okay, well, what can I do to make it work? And the gym owner was like, well, you got to, make all these sales. Reece is like, all right, well, if that's what it is, it's what it is. And then the resourcefulness came in again. Because Reece was like, all right, I'll go and get a suit and knock on all these doors. And, did it? Didn't work. But Reece didn't give up. He was like, all right, well, what can I do? Got this database here. I'll send out some emails, Kept emailing till he had like 50 people email. And then from that email, there was that one gold nugget where 10 people signed up there and that opened the door. So a lot of the time, that's what it takes. So if you look at it, because it might be easy if someone just heard a smidgen of that story to be like, Reece got lucky. He just met one guy who brought down 10 members and that's how he started, right? Because if you just got in at one point, you might get that bit. But really, it was all that stuff under the iceberg that got Reece to that point there. So I think that's important. But those two things, I think, are Reece's two best qualities, the work ethic and the resourcefulness. If you have both of those two things, you're going to be successful. All right. Work ethic is good on its own, but work ethic without resourcefulness, you could just keep doing the same thing that's not working over and over again. When you combine it with work ethic with resourcefulness, that's when the results come in. I like a few things that the way Reece looks at exercise. I like especially the mindset point of view, the mindset and also the culture and the team side of things, because that's also what attracts me. For me, it's not so much about going and exercising. It's about being part of a team and meeting people. And that culture is very important. I think it's personality if it's a one-on-one thing, right? If you're training someone else, it's not just about the exercises you give them. It's about how you connect with that person there. And you'll find that you could give two trainers, they could give that one person the exact same program, but the person might like it a lot better with one trainer than the other because they like one person better because they're more personal or whatever it may be. And then on group side of things, you've got that as well, but you've got a third element on there as well, which is the team side of things. Because you might have a boot camp or a small group training and you might like your trainer, but if the 10, 15 other people in there you can't stand, you're not coming back. Right? On the flip side, if you like those 10 or 15 other people, like you're going to go down just to see your friends. And that's where I think there's a connection with the sporting side of things as well. I used to like footy training, rugby league training. Not so much for the training side of things. I didn't mind it, but I just like going down and seeing my friends. Right? And I feel there's an element of that if you run a successful group training. Yeah, the training is part of it. But if you do a good job, people are going to go down just to see their friends. So I think that's really cool there as well.
Totally, and we have that we run a zoo session on a Tuesday morning at 6 a.m. and it finishes at 45 minutes. But you can guarantee that last 15 minutes, they're all hanging out together and catching up and going for coffees. And I think if you can create that just builds so much more rapport with your clients and friendships. When your clients become your friends, and there's got to be that line of professionalism. Because you can't overstep that barrier, because then the pay line comes a bit weird and they're like, oh, well, I'm your friend, so should I be getting the service for cheaper than somebody else or whatever. You can never do that. So you need to be strict with yourself in terms of how you run that, but let them into your lives, they want to know what you did and what you do. And it's funny because when I first started training people, I would ask them how their day was and they would never ask me back. But once you build that relationship, then it's a two-way street and it's amazing.
Agree 100%. And I think the two most important times, especially as a boot camp instructor, group training instructor, is the 15 minutes before the session. So this is how I can tell if someone's got a successful boot camp or not. The 15 minutes before the session, if no one's coming early, or when people come, they're just standing on their own and on their phone. That's a tough battle.
Yeah.
Ideally, what you want is as someone comes in, they already know the person that's already there. They chat to that person. The third person comes and they all start talking. And that's the trainer's job, because default in today's society is you get on your phone. If you go into a room and there's another person there that you haven't met, you get on your phone. That's default, right? But it's the trainer's job where if you can provide that environment where that person looks like an idiot if they're on their phone, which is essentially what we want. We essentially want to create an environment so that nobody wants to be the one in the corner on their phone. They want to go in there and talk to their friends, you know? So there's the 15 minutes before, but also then after the session. The longer your clients stay back after the session chatting, the more successful your bootcamp is. It's that simple. So I love those things there. I also like the referral strategy and even just the talking strategy, right? It's like, I think like a lot of trainers get, they think it's got to be about how fancy your website is or how good your social media is. And, you know, only if I had a better website or maybe if I had more followers on my Instagram, then I'd be more successful. But I feel like a lot of it's just talking to people, right? Just like, hey,
Mate, what does it do, you know? Like, what does a website do? It's a fancy brochure, you know. Like until you can get in front of somebody, you're not providing them anything. You're giving the same thing everybody else is giving. What
can they tell from a website? What font you like? That's about it, you know.
Now, and one of the things I've learned recently, and you're really, really good at this, is like with your lives and stuff, is getting people to know who you are before they know you. And I've just started doing it myself, and I've increased my confidence with Instagram DMs through video. So rather than just messaging them back and be like, hey, this is the price, or, you know, if you want to come in for a chat, I'll quickly jump on a video and I'll be like, oh, hey, Tom, thanks for your inquiry. I'm going to get back to you as soon as possible, but, you know, it's just really good to meet you and thank you for your message. And just that as just an opener on a DM is worth its weight in gold. Like that is a tactic I've been using probably only for the last 2 months. And I'll tell you what, conversions are like through the roof.
I love that. And I think it's two things there, eh? It's once again your resourcefulness, Reece. It's something you're doing that nobody else is doing. But secondly, it's just connecting with that person better. And I feel like that's the secret, you know, like, and especially boot camp. Like, let's say you're running a boot camp and you need 20 people for it to be successful. Really, you could find that amount of people in a week from, you know, people you went to high school with and then their friends and then, you know, your family and their friends. Like, if you can talk and portray your message, it's a lot easier. So I love that too. And I also like the audit side of things where Reece went and applied for the award. And what it essentially did was got Reece a little bit out of the comfort zone. It was like, okay, hey, I'm already good at what I do. I'm, you know, flying along. It's all going well. Oh, hold on. Let me do this audit. Hey, actually, I'm not doing that. I might do that and it'll improve my business. So I love all those things there. Hey, Reece, we're a bit short on time, but there's a few questions I like to always finish up with. Now, the first one is about you and if people want to follow you. Am I right in saying that the best place is your Instagram account?
Yeah. We're feeding everything through Instagram now, and that's just to do with, I don't know if you guys are on Facebook anymore, but just the exposure from Instagram is so much higher. So we're at Athlete Training Systems. It's a bit of a mouthful. I'm sure we can probably put it somewhere in the podcast. But yeah, didn't really think about that one. That's another trick for young players. Don't have a real long handle on your Instagram because people will lose you. But I think too, if you type in Recreate, I think we come up pretty quickly as well. So at Recreate will come through for Athlete Training Systems, which is Instagram. Yeah.
Awesome. I'll put it in the description, but just to confirm, it's Athlete. So there's no S on the end. Athlete Training
Singular.
Systems.
Yep, correct. Yep, that's
awesome. Well, hey Reece, you're obviously a mentor for a lot of people in the world, right? You've got all your clients, you've got all your trainers. What I would like to ask you to finish up with is who are your mentors? And you can give it a few different ways. There may be paid mentors or business coaches. There may be podcasts that you listen to or social media people or books that you've read or courses that you've done. Maybe if you could say, let's say if there's a trainer listening to this and you could give them, you know, a couple courses, couple books, couple people to follow that would, by the end of the year, their business would transform. What would you recommend they do?
Okay, cool. So like I'm a reader and I'm also a podcast guy. So they are my two things because also when you're busy and you need to unwind at the end of the night, and like I know like people say don't do business stuff at the end of the night because it's not good for you and you should read nonfiction and all that. I've never done that, and I will never probably do that because I think it's like it's not moving the needle, right? So like if you're not pushing towards your next goal, like reading about dragons is not going to get me there. So actually I heard it in your recent podcast. Actually, I've just read Mark Manson's Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck.
Yes.
And that is like, it's an easy read. Like it's like, it reminds me of a kid's book because the font's a little bit big, but they spread it out over like 200 pages. So like you can eat that thing up in like a week. Like it's pretty easy. And people say they read it again and they think about different things when they read it. One of the other books that was really influential for me was Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Workweek.
Yes.
And I think a lot of people would have read that as well. Again, I read it again and again because I realize, you know, when I'm getting up to like 10, 12-hour days again, I'm no longer a businessman. I'm a freaking operator again, you know. And the problem is with PT is we trade dollars for time. And, you know, obviously there's online services and there's other passive income streams that people are generating these days. But I just love that human contact, you know, like that's just something that will always be me. And I'm fighting for the guys who don't want to lose to the app game, you know, like I think if we can just keep a really strong presence in front of people, that like a robot will never take our jobs. So I'm a freedom fighter for that one. So
I love that. I'll just touch on that a little bit because I think that's a good point where, you know, a lot of people are like, oh, you know, I'm going to lose business because of all these apps and all these online programs, and it's completely different, right? And if that's all you do as a trainer is just give someone a program, then yes, you will lose, right? It's got to be, you got to give them more than that. You've got to give them that personal side to things. Otherwise, yes, you will get taken over. So I say, hey, bring your personality out there, right?
100%. Yeah. And like we were told when I studied never to touch people. Like, man, human touch, human contact. And I'm not saying like touch them inappropriately. I'm saying like give them a pat on the back, give them a high five. If something happens influential in their life, give them a hug. Like that creates such a great connection. And like it's not being sifty, it's not being creepy. You are just like
you feel so much closer, right? With me, there's a huge difference between if someone has just said, oh, hello, Jono, nice to meet you, or if someone has said, hello, Jono, nice to meet you, and given me a high five or given me a hug, or like just something, that little touch just breaks the barrier so much.
Just a handshake, you know, anything. Or like, you know, we sign off sessions with high fives and we have like little competitions that come up with like different little handshakes. So it's cool, man. Like it's fun. It makes it good. Back to probably podcasts. A big influence for me when I first started to move more down the S&C path of my business and working more with athletes and teams. I was a big follower of Jim Jones, which are Utah-based. They're actually a education provider for courses, but they're ones that really tap into this mind as primary side of exercise and working people's mental strength opposed to just physical. So they do a podcast. It's actually Mark Twight is the founder, and I think it's called the Dissect Podcast. You can get your hands on that. He is a mountain climber, so by trade, so it gets a little bit mountain climber-ish, but there's just heaps of gold nuggets in there in terms of mindset and just doing unbelievable things that you would never do. He's like a pre-David Goggins kind of guy, who's also great to listen to, but I just get a little bit like overwhelmed by his story.
Pretty hardcore, isn't he?
Yeah.
Oh,
Jocko
yes.
Willink is another one that I quite like. And his Instagram is amazing. You know, like get on that Instagram and just like, it's just like his alarm clock goes off every day at 4:30 and he's on one, you know? So he's a good motivator.
I just finished his book today, believe it or not.
Did you? Yeah. I'd love to get my hands on
ownership.
Good. And I've just read another one, Dare to Lead. I don't know if anyone's got around that, but it's I think it's Benny Brown is the author. And yeah, that one's another exceptional book too. So get your hands on that one. That one's a little bit more technical around business and strategy. But I think from even like a low level small business manager to a high level corporation, it covers its bases. It's not the easiest read, but yeah, you tough it out.
Easy. All right. Well, hey, you've given us some good resources there, Reece. Just before I leave you to it, is there anything I forgot? Is there anything I should have asked you but didn't ask you, or anything you want to get off your chest before I leave you to it?
No, mate, I could talk for days, but like the parting thing I probably would like to leave here, just for any listeners or any PT out there, is like, there's gonna be times where it's hard, and like life's always hard. Like there's hard things come up. You got to pay bills. People die. Shit happens. Find the good in that, and try and flip it on its head and make it a positive situation. It's hard sometimes, like, like people with, I've dealt with a lot of people with mental illness and stuff like that, and you get stuck in these things and these ruts, and like, but I'm like, but what was one good thing you did today? Or, what are two positive things you can take away from this? And that kind of stuff will keep you going. That sort of, it's not so much a gratitude journal. It's not so much writing things down and having them there, but it's just like, always find the positive in a bad situation, and shit could always get worse, so always think of it in that way.
My favorite take on that is, in life, things are going to happen, right? And one of two things: I'm either going to win or I'm going to learn, right? There's no bad thing. Whatever happens, it's either a positive for me, or if it wasn't a positive, I've learned something for it, which is a positive anyway. But Reece, that's all we got time for today. So thank you very much for your time.
No problems, mate. Thank you very much for having me.